Hello kids, welcome back to our YouTube channel. I'm Ms. Aruni. I will be covering your grade 10 business and accounting studies. Let's go towards our lesson number 2. The business environment. So what is the business environment? Before explaining this lesson, let me teach you the learning outcomes. So by the end of this lesson, you should be able to identify what are the internal and external factors of a business, the influence of the government to a business, the influence of technological and economic environment to the business, as well as about the globalization. Now we are going to understand what the business environment is. So if you ask the question, what is the environment? So as kids in your grade 5, you have done environment studies. So even then you learned that environment is everything around us. Similarly, in the business environment, we are discussing about everything within and around the business. So, what is the business environment? It is the factors within the business and outside the business which can affect the existence directly or indirectly. So, these are the key terms which you have to identify or to understand so that you can write your own definition. So, in business environment, we are discussing about different factors. These factors are within the business or outside of the business, and they have the ability to affect the existence of the business either directly or indirectly. So, I hope you got the idea of what the business environment is. If those are inside the business or within the business, they have the ability to directly affect the business existence, and those outside the business have the ability to indirectly affect the business existence. Hence, the business environment can be defined as the environment in which the factors affecting the businesses are activated. So, it's an environment where factors affecting the business are activated. So if we look at the factors of this environment, we also call them as internal and external forces. So those within the business are considered as the internal forces, while those outside of the business are considered as the external forces. So though they are internal or external forces, both of them have the ability to influence our business operations. This diagram, I think you are familiar with it because it is also given in your textbook. So Putte, remember, I'm not discussing about stakeholders, I'm discussing about business environment. Though you realize that there's a familiarity, Putte, be careful. Business stakeholder list of this external environment or the external stakeholder list and the external environment are two different concepts and their factors differ. So, because of that, do not study one. Remember to study that or to understand that there's a difference between the business environment and the business stakeholders, which we did on our lesson number 1. Right? So, now let's understand what are the factors in the internal environment of a business. So there are three main factors or forces. They are the owners, managers, and the employees. So those three consist of the internal environment. While the external factors or the forces are customers, suppliers, and competitors, and political environment, legal environment, technological environment, economic environment, and finally the global environment. So we'll discuss all these things in a summary. This is the internal environment. So if somebody asks the question in your test paper, if it is given as define the internal environment, you have to write or state that those internal environment consist of parties and forces acting within the business and has the ability to affect the business directly, right? So that is what the internal environment is about. So, all the positive features of the internal environment are considered to be strengths, while the negative features of these factors are considered to be weaknesses. So, if we speak about the owners, they are simply the contributors of capital, knowledge, and also the risk takers. So, all the strengths or the positive aspects of the owners will be considered as strengths of the internal environment, while all the negative impacts that he can do to the business will be considered as weaknesses. If we take, for example, the ability of the owners to give a pool of funds will be considered as a strength, while his lack of knowledge will be a weakness to conduct the business. So I hope you got the idea what strengths and weaknesses are. So then if we go to the second factor of force, the managers, they are the key persons involved in decision making and directing the business resources to achieve business objectives. So they make decisions, direct the business resources to achieve the business objectives. So if they are motivated, if they have proper leadership, if they take correct decisions, all these can be taken as strengths. But if they take poor decisions, if they are demotivated, and if they lack leadership skills, those will be considered as weaknesses. So I hope the two forces that I mentioned on the internal environment are clear to you. And finally, we are going towards the third force and the final force in the internal environment. It is the employees. Employees are the people who perform business tasks. They try to fulfill these tasks to reach the end results of business or to achieve the business goals and objectives. So, if our employees are well performing, productive, those will be the strengths. While if our employees are lethargic, lazy, or if they are not performing well, then that will be a weakness to our organization. So, Putte, in summary, internal environment is about the factors inside the business organization. They can directly affect them. All the positive aspects are considered as strengths, and all the negative aspects of them are considered as weaknesses. So, that is the idea of this internal environment in a nutshell. Then we are talking about the external environment. So, what is the external environment or what does it consist of? It has parties or forces acting outside the business who has the ability to affect the business indirectly, right? They are outside the business and they have the ability to affect the business indirectly. So, all the positive aspects are considered as opportunities, and the negative aspects of these forces are considered as threats, right? So, I will explain each force one by one. So, first is the customers. Customers are the buyers of our business products. That means the goods and services. So, as long as they buy or they make the purchasing decision, the business will survive. So, our survival depends on them. So, having a good demand for our products can be considered as an opportunity for us. While if the customers are dissatisfied or they have a change in customer preferences, that can be a threat to our company, right? So, just as all the positive things were considered strength in the internal environment, here as it is the external environment. Positive things fall under the opportunities and the negative aspects falls under the threats, right? So after that, it is the suppliers. Suppliers are the people who are providing raw materials and other services to the businesses. So these people also has a role to play. Though they're outside, they can affect our business. So if they are providing goods on time and providing quality raw materials, we can consider that as an opportunity. But if there are delays in the raw material supply, or if they are providing low quality raw materials, that can be a threat to the business survival. And then the competitors. Who are the competitors? They are people who provide similar products to the market. So there are other businesses providing the same good or service that we provide. So their price, quality, marketing strategies, everything could affect us because we are both in the same market targeting the same customers. So, or if they have a price change, and if they have low quality goods, that can be, if they are producing low quality goods, we can say that if our goods are with a certain level of quality or high quality, then it can be an opportunity for us. All their weak points can be an opportunity for us. All their uh, plus points can be a threat to us, right? Then we'll go to the political environment. The political environment consists of the government, that is the main institute in the political environment. So it is the government which make policies. The policies consist of rules and regulations that is applicable to the entire nation. So when the government make policies in staying in the political environment, these policies also could affect our business Putte. For example, if you know that your parents pay a tax, either they pay an income tax or else a property tax or else a business tax, VAT, all those falls under the fiscal policy which is generated by the government. There are also other policies such as infrastructure development policies and all. So all these can affect our businesses. Then the legal environment. This environment consists of laws, regulations, which are enforced to protect the consumers, domestic manufacturers, business communities, and the environment. So these are laws and regulations which try to protect the rights of another party, right? So remember, this will have different bodies or entities which are enforcing laws. For example, our business will be affected by the Companies Act number 7 of 2007, or else at least by the Shop and Office Employees Act. So you do not need to know thoroughly about the acts given or what does it does. For your knowledge, just understand that to safeguard the rights of the shop or office employees, this Shop and Office Employees Act is formulated in 1954. By doing that, the business is also influenced or is liable to follow this legal requirement. So that is how the legal environment affect our business. And then the technological environment. So as kids, now we are also joining or listening my video through the technological platform. Just as your education is influenced by this, even the businesses are influenced by this technological environment, Putte. So all the rapid development in innovation and research done in this technological environment will influence the business production, and also it is needed to advance it. For example, former we had handwritten books, and then which we used ink and all, and then we used normal printing, and finally now we have laser printing, and then formerly we used pigeons, handwritten letters, now we have instant messages or text messages. And then if you were learning, you could realize that formerly you used to communicate your friends either through giving them a phone call. Now you use different social media. Similarly, with the technological changes in the environment, business too has to adapt to it. That is why, with this pandemic situation, the businesses has to change their business from conventional or traditional way into selling their goods and services online. So then I will go towards the economic environment. The economic environment consists of economic factors such as the interest rate, inflation, savings, and the level of employment. So, our savings decisions as a business will be affected by the savings rates given through the economic environment. Our borrowings or our loans taken will be affected by the interest rate, which is given by or determined by the economic environment. So, as a business, how we save, how we borrow loans, how we spend, how are we to find employees or the minimum salaries to give them, all will be determined by this economic environment. So I hope all these things that I discussed are clear to you. But I'm doing a summary because all these lessons which will be taking nearly a month to cover, I will be covering it in one video, which will be about 10 to 20 minutes. Right? So please be thorough. I won't be missing any part. Take the idea and construct your own sentence. Do not write short answers. Always have a complete sentence so that you can definitely get a good grade. Finally, it is the global environment. So, this global environment took place or happened due to the improvement in technology. You know now, we are not isolated, we are all communicating or having interrelationships with other countries. So, it is because of that the globalization is there. So, globalization is the mutual relationship among countries in terms of economic, social, and cultural dimensions. It will make business face both domestic and foreign market competition and introduce new technology. So, how does this global environment affect a business? For example, if you are in the beverage industry, you could see that in Sri Lanka, imagine we have Smack or Elephant House, but still we have to compete or face the competition or the different changes done by the foreign made products such as Coca Cola, right? So that way, whatever the business we do, whether we are in one country, we will be affected by the different trends of these other countries, right? So I hope you got an idea of what this external environment is about. So these are a few challenges which I listed out. This is not given in your textbook, but you can write a good answer and make your answer different from all the others sitting for your the same ordinary level exams. So if they ask what are the recent challenges or the trends, if they ask what are the recent challenges or the trends, you should be able to speak about few of them. Especially this pandemic situation. You know that this COVID-19 pandemic have affected businesses immensely, right? So those, even the retail shops has to be closed. There was severe civilian restrictions on their movement. So all these things were because or affecting us because of the global environment. This pandemic began in Wuhan, China, which is not here in Sri Lanka, but still it spread here. And all the oil price changes, the lack of imports, all these things affected our country as well. So remember, you have a good knowledge, maybe you have that rather than me. So go through your basic understandings. You don't have to go through your notes all the time. Pute, writing business and accounting studies is about writing things you have seen and experienced in your normal life. So, because of that, always have confidence, give a correct example from your day to day life. And then having new taxes and interest rates imposed. So, if there's a new tax or an increase in interest rates, it will be an economic environment component. And if there's an advancement in technology, it will be falling under the technological environment. So you could see that your teachers, even your parents who are working, they have recently started to work from home. And now we do not have uh, usual our conventional type of recording accounts through human aspect. We are using accounting packages, right? We don't write them or record them by our hand. We are using accounting packages. So all these things are new changes which are taking place in a technological environment. So I have given them as new challenges. So all these things are a challenge to the business. Businesses should be able to face them properly and make them an opportunity. If they fail, this will become a threat. Right? I hope you got an understanding of what I try to say. මේ දේවල් ටික පුතේ බිස්නස් එකට තියෙන චැලෙන්ජ් එකක්. මේක සාර්ථකව මුහුණ දුන්නොත් ඒක ඔපචුනිටි එකක් වෙනවා. හැබැයි මේ දේවල් වලට සාර්ථකව මුහුණ දීමේ හැකියාව තිබුණේ නැත්නම් අන්න ඒ වෙලාවට මේක threat එකක් වෙනවා. Then increase in imports. So if there's an increase in imports, if you are a producer, or a good manufacturing organization, as we talked in our lesson number 1, you will be affected because of the increase in imports. And then NIV loads, if the legal environment try to give NIV laws, your business can be affected as well. And the skills of the owners and managers, all these things can be a challenge to the business. So you have got a basic idea of what the business is, the different factors in the internal and external environment. You might think, why should we learn about this business environment? So both negative and positive influences are there in the business, and it is a must to understand them. And rather than understanding, you should be able to identify them and to face the business risks successfully. So to achieve all these goals, the business environment helps. So that is why we do a SWOT analysis, SWOT, SWOT. That is, in the internal environment we consider the strengths and weaknesses, and on the external environment we consider the opportunities and threats. So by doing so, we will be able to identify the positive and negative influences, face the business risk properly, and also to take preventive actions to face such threats and challenges. So then we will be discussing about different questions which are able to be there in your examination. For example, there might be a question asking to discuss positive and negative impacts of the external environment components to a domestic business. So if such a question is given, imagine the question is asking you, select a company or a business in your area and describe the positive and negative impacts of that selected business within the external environment. So then you have to talk about all the factors. If it is political environment, you write about it and the positive impact and the negative impact. If it is the economic environment, one or two positive impacts and one or two negative impacts. You have to write both, right? Always, if you have a long question, find the key areas which you have to write. Now they're asking you to discuss what positive and negative impacts of what the external environment. So you have to discuss, you have to at least not just point out, you have to describe them. Right? So I hope you got the understanding of answering a question like this. Next, if they ask you to provide, observe the strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threats of a business in your area. So, you're asking about the strengths, weakness, opportunities, threats of what? A business in your area. So, number one, you have to write the selected business, and then the internal environment, strengths and weaknesses, and then the external environment, opportunities and threats. For example, I have selected a garment factory. You can write the name. So the strengths will be maybe the pool of capital, the experience. The weaknesses will be incorrect decisions made and the delays. While in the external environment, the garment factory will have government grants and new technology as opportunities, and the threats will be labor union activities and disasters. So, Putte, those that are not under the control of the business will be the external environmental factors, and those that can be controlled will be the internal environment factors. So, I hope you got an idea of this lesson number two. Hope you enjoyed learning with us. Thank you.